I'm Tony. I am the growth leader here. I run the growth practice at Mucker Capital. We're an early stage venture firm focusing on B2B SaaS as well as direct to consumer type of applications. My role basically is to work directly with our founders. But really, the star of today's show is my friend Adam Watterson. Adam and I have known each other for, I think, more than like a decade ago when we used to both work in marketing technology startups. And then as I kept up with Adam's career over the years and following him on LinkedIn, I started to notice that he was in the marketing function prior CMO. And then I saw that he started to shift towards product, owning a chief product officer role and eventually CTO. And I thought, that's a really interesting growth career trajectory. And when Will Shu, one of our partners, asked me if we could do a growth series session or webinar on how to utilize AI to build products, especially for non-technical founders, Adam was like the first person that came to my mind. And I said, I know the perfect person for this. And here he is. So, Adam, super excited to have you share your expertise with us and your journey. I know we're going to learn a lot. Myself personally, I know I'm going to be learning a lot in whatever you're going to be sharing. So the floor is yours, my friend. We're really looking forward to it. And so, yeah, take it away.
Thanks, Tony. So, like you were saying, when Tony and I first met, I was CMO, SaaS Martech startup. I spent 15 years in marketing leadership before 3 years ago transitioning to running product, engineering, and customer success teams. And so that was a big shift. And I'm not going to talk all that much about it, but I'm going to show you the fruits of all of those labors. In addition to that, I've spent the last 18 years volunteering and teaching environmental education. I'm on a board for a nonprofit here in Seattle, teaching people about how to utilize the land around them to grow food to help themselves out. In addition to that, I spent the last year and a half on the board at the Allen Institute for medical research, and I'm on the core team that's responsible for animal care and use within the institute. And then finally, in 2023, I became myself a founder and a solopreneur. And so, what I'm going to be talking through today is really highlighting the work that I've done over the last kind of year and a half and the things that I built. Right. So I'm going to start off just by showing you what I built. So in the last year and a half, I've spent exactly $2,210 on hosting fees, on AI. I just looked up the number right before the webinar just to make sure that it was accurate and to the point. And so what we're seeing on the screen is the product analytics company that I built, which first captures all of the data of the way that people are utilizing the product that you've created. And then it seeks to show people in a more visual way how to look at the ways that people are utilizing the technology that you created, right? So in this case, if I, want to see holistic trends, I would look at the last stuff, or if I wanted to dive into a particular person or into a particular metric. These are the things that we're seeing on the screen right now. So Tony, in our pre-session, we were talking about like what things can't you build using AI, and you're like, should it not be for complex stuff? And I was like, I don't know. This seems pretty complex to me. One other thing that I built real quickly before we move on is just a survey engine. I also do consulting for companies that want to understand how their teams are utilizing artificial intelligence. So I wanted a really easy survey engine that created charts automatically. So all I have to do is pop the questions in, and everything about the entire way that the survey gets created and all the visualizations that we're seeing right now are all automatically generated. It cost me 2 days worth of time in order to build what I just showed you, right?
And a quick question, Adam. Did
Yeah.
you have any sort of background or previous understanding of how to do this? Like, how did you start your journey with building product using AI? Maybe a quick.
Yeah. And so, I was running the product engineering and customer success teams, right? So I was responsible for not just knowing what product we should go build. So product management was my core responsibility within that as the chief product officer. But in addition to that, I had to understand how to work effectively with my team of engineers and the customer success team in implementing that. So I had a little foray into how, but this next slide is really how I actually got started. Well, the slide after this. I before we get to that one, I just want to say like the first thing that I think people do wrong within working with AI is they don't just talk to AI like it's a human. So I would really just caution or advise people just let go of your fears around prompting, around creating the perfect prompt, around like there's so much anxiety around, well, if I don't say the exact right words and this won't be any good. So let's put that to the side. And then in May of 2023, this is what I did to get started. You are a university professor teaching a 12-week course and I did React, Go, and some JavaScript and Python for the product that I built. And so I went through each one of those languages and said, please write first the syllabus and then begin your first lesson. And so as you can see here, I've asked it to teach us about React Native. And throughout this presentation, this is the way that we'll be seeing everything from here on. I just recorded myself actually interacting with AI and to do the things that we want to do. So here I've asked it to teach us a 12-week course. I apparently don't know how to copy and paste very well, so I'll struggle with this for just a little second. But now it's going to get started and it's going to teach us that first lesson in how to use React Native. What is it for? It was developed by Facebook, yada, yada, yada. And it's going to go through step by step all of the major key components of the things that I need to understand about this particular programming language. Now, this could be anything, right? So I in this presentation have focused on a React Native use case, but you could be using Cursor or Copilot or Replit or any one of the like amazing new technologies that are a bit more open source. They're a lot cheaper than the traditional offerings, Lovable, Vercel, Supabase, etc. And you could be asking it these same sort of questions. If it doesn't know something, you can just grab the product documentation from online, give it to it, and then ask it to teach you a wonderful lesson in how to do things. And if it's not doing what you want, look at what I'm typing right now. Please focus more on core concepts and less of the code. I actually want you to explain the language to me rather than just showing me examples of code, right? So this is how I got started. I learned everything pretty much that I know about Python from this exact process right here. And this is about the only time I'm going to give you a real solid prompt. You're a university professor teaching a 12-week course. So from here, I just wanted to like spend a second because I know we're going to get questions like, hey, do I need an OpenAI Pro account? Should I use GPT-4o or O1 or Claude or Gemini? And I just wanted to like show you on the screen real quick. Like this is me running DeepSeek on my computer locally without using any sort of subscription. And it's just going through and it's thinking about the particular things that I've asked it in this question. So no matter which foundational model you choose to engage with, you're going to be okay. I guess is the point of the matter. So for this presentation, we're going to dive into a real world example because I think that's easier and better to follow along with than just talking about things in abstract. And so I already showed you, I asked about React Native. We're going to build a mobile phone app for a fitness product that we want to launch. It was the first of the year when I was putting together this presentation. Everybody's got new year, new you sort of like mentalities going on, right? So for the remainder of what we do, we're going to be focusing on this fitness application together. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do is just understand how to start development, right? Before you can even get started, you need to understand, how do I set up my computer to be able to do coding, right? And so if you're using Replit, then it does a lot of the things that we're looking at right here. It does it for you, and it's a great way to get started a little bit faster. But what we're seeing on the screen are for this particular set of challenges that I've given the AI to help us with, what are the packages and products that can help us speed this process along? So on the left side, I said npm I Redux. That's pretty much the extent that you have to type in order to get really complex software packages installed on your computer so that you can then use them to do really intense and cool things with later on. So Redux is for state management within React. And so, if you don't know something as you're going through, then you can do what I just did here, which is why would you use reanimated? What is this for? I don't understand it. Give it to give you a little bit more information, or if it gives you three different potential ways to do animation or transitions or whatever, you can ask it for explaining to give it more explanation about what's the difference between this or that, etc. And so here on the right hand side again, I've said, okay, hey, I want to understand what things that I need to do to get started. And it's starting from the very beginning. So I need Homebrew first. And then I need Node installed. And then I need NPM. And this is just to be able to start installing the other packages, etc. So all you have to do is copy brew install open JDK, paste it into your terminal, and then that's how you get started. If that seemed like it was over your head, no problem. Just ask the AI to explain it to you more. Right? You don't have to be stressed out and know everything. You just have to be able to read what it's saying and get started, right? So I throughout this presentation, I spend much longer actually engaging with the AI than when we have time to talk through today. So at the end, I'm going to give you a little QR code throw on the screen for anybody that wants to go back and look at this presentation itself and watch the videos longer. So some of them are like 20 minutes long. We don't have time to go through all of that. We're going to move on right now. But just so you know, you can watch the videos later on if you so choose. So
Yeah.
otherwise, go ahead.
I was just going to say, because I noticed in your prompts that you literally are typing in how you would talk to a human. And that's one of the key takeaways, right? Because I get the sense with some of our founders who are from a non-technical perspective, again, I think people tend to get caught up on how to write the right prompts, short of writing a prompt that says, hey, build me a fitness app. Like, how do they start thinking about, breaking out the different chunks to utilize, these AI tools to start to, attack it from different, I guess, groups or blocks, if you will, for lack of a better term. And it sounds like if the main thing is just to talk to the AI like a human and have it explain it to you. Is that the main takeaway?
Yeah. I mean, certainly for these first couple of slides in the presentation, right? I just really want to encourage you. You have a partner to help you through every single one of these steps. You don't have to know yourself how to do any one of these things. And so, like, one of the things that was really confusing for me initially was how do I structure all the files within this project within directories to make sure that it works properly. Like I didn't know how to do any of that stuff before I got started. And all I have to do is talk like a human to it, and it will then react, like give you perfectly logical and sensible things back. So hey, you had me install VS Code. Can you explain to me the directory structure my app will take? I don't know how to organize the files properly.
Mm.
Cool. Here's how it would suggest. First, you're going to have this folder. It's going to be Android, iOS. Then you're going to have an assets folder, an SRC folder, a source folder. And it actually organizes for you all of the files. And one of the things that's great about doing this is it's going to teach you, hey, there's a package.json file, and there's a Babel file, and a Tailwind file that you're going to need to have to be able to make this work. And it will then give you clues like, hey, I have to go figure out what's a Tailwind file. I need to like figure out what are the base things that go in a metroconfig.js file, etc. Right? So AI is there to help you all the way through it. One thing that I'll say before we keep going is I really encourage people to trash their chats as often as possible. And that means delete what you're currently working on and start a new chat. And the reason that I say this is Like the visual on the screen, it's like an invisible hand grabs a little bit of the blanket in the middle of your bed and starts pulling it up. So the more you interact with the chat, the AI is focusing in on one particular region of knowledge, and it goes deeper and deeper into that set of knowledge. And what can happen is if you try and then zoom back out later on within the same chat and ask it a bigger question, it can often get kind of confused, or like what I call here getting lost in the folds, because you've focused in on just the core concepts that you've been talking about, and you can often like kind of forget some important things, or like the AI gets too lost in the context of what it's trying to engage with you about. So I would really encourage you, and you'll see it throughout the remainder of the presentation. I start doing something for a little while, I stop, I delete the chat, I start a new chat, and then I continue along with the thing that I was doing. So if you still don't get it after all of that, it's no problem, right? A lot of people are non-technical. You don't understand why React has something called a hook, right? And I didn't know what hooks were for. And this is literally how I learned how to utilize the different hooks within React. This first little set is not all that interesting, but the part on the left, I don't understand this. Can you explain it to me and using a metaphor for me like I'm in high school? Or can you teach it to me like you would teach your grandmother? Like these kind of things where it's like trying to say, like, hey, I don't get it. Can you help me understand it better? And then I love what it does. Like, so here it's giving me a basketball metaphor. Use status for keeping track of, use effect is for making things happen, use context as the team strategy, use ref as like a stopwatch, use reducer as for managing player substitutions on and off the court. Use memos for how you calculate things that don't change very much, like shooting percentages, callbacks for specific plays, etc. And it goes through each one of them. It gives you an example of how it looks, and it gives you a little bit more context around the metaphor so that you can take concepts that are really hard and confusing and make them easier to understand. Use ideas like the jersey numbers. Like I love that as an example, right? And so I guess the point I want to really make throughout all of this is that the only hurdle to achieving your goals is your own desire to do it, right? There is a force here that can help you figure out all the things that you need to learn.
Hmm.
But AI doesn't replace your brain, y'all. You still have to understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish and how you're trying to accomplish it. Otherwise, you just won't write good code at the end of the day, right? And this is a learning process. You'll get better and better the longer that you engage with AI to write code. You'll understand the things that it's doing a lot better and a lot smarter. And P.S. All of the images throughout this were created in Midjourney, another AI image creation product. So, okay, that's the basics, right? So we understand how to install the code packages on our computer. We now understand how to learn more about the things that we're doing. Now that we've got all of the things that we need on our computer to be able to like for our mobile phone app, we need to be able to access the health data that's on our phone, the gyroscope, so we can understand, hey, somebody's working out, how is the phone moving during this workout, and tap into those great resources. And now we're going to keep going and talk about how to write really good requirements before you ever ask for a line of code. And this is like really critical for me, that in this journey, you don't just start with, hey, write me code for a fitness app like Tony joked about earlier, but instead you write really good and comprehensive requirements first,
Mhm.
and then you give that back to the AI and you say, hey, can you write the code for this? And then it will just like spit out really great code that is 80 to 90% ready to go. We'll talk more about what to do from there.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions, Tony, before we keep going?
No, let's
We good?
let's keep going. This is
Awesome.
great.
Yeah. Ask questions in the Q&A box, y'all. Cool. So good code starts with great requirements. So I've already talked about this a couple of times. Really focus on first just having a conversation, ask lots of questions, learn more, Ask it for, hey, give me 3 examples of things that I could use in order to accomplish this. And it will give you options. And you can say, hey, for this particular outcome that I really desire, which of these options is the best solution? And which one would you recommend and why? And then trash that chat, start a new chat and write your project out again, and then give it the requirements. So right now, the stuff that we see on the screen, these are requirements. I'm going through, I'm asking some questions right now on the screen. I'm like, hey, I don't understand what this particular thing that you're suggesting to me is. And so I'll go through, I'll ask it to like give me some more information. And then when I'm done and I feel like I really understand everything, like, okay, so here are the questions that I've asked it. I need real-time data storage for this fitness app, etc. And then once I have that, I'll start a new chat, write out the things from this project requirement, the things that I really think are important to accomplish during it. And then I'll give it back the previous set of requirements and ask the AI to write it out again. And so I'll do this kind of 2 or 3 times throughout the requirements process. I'll have a chat, I'll ask it questions, I'll narrow in. See here, it's asking, do you want to use Nevo or Victory for charts? Well, we need to make a decision before we can move on with actually creating the requirements. So I'll ask questions, we'll determine which one's better. I need native sensors for React in order to make these visualizations work really well, etc. And then moving on to the next phase, either I would stop here and then I would work with my developer. If you there are many people, there's nothing wrong with developers, even though we are talking all about how to use AI to write code today. Developers are incredible resources. They can help you shortcut a lot of the things that you were having to learn because they already know those things. They've already thought about these principles and how to design great architectural solutions that can scale and meet the needs of the number of users you'll have, etc. But if you're like me and you're scrappy, you just want to do everything by yourself for $2,000, it's a lot less than you're going to pay a developer for a year and a half to work 40 hours a week, certainly. So if you are working with a developer, stop at that requirements phase that we just saw and then review it together, right? Talk to them, see what questions they have. How can the doc be iterated and improved upon until you're both happy with the plan? And then you give that to them and you move on with life, right? Now it's their job. They do the development work. If you're trying to be scrappy and take it on like me, then keep going. So those great requirements make code generation so much more smooth. And look at the way the requirements are coming up on the screen right now. They've gotten so much more specific. As I keep asking, now we're into specific muscle groups. How do we figure out workout intensity predictions and make sure that if you work out the day before, that you're not working out the same muscles the next day, etc. And so as I'm pushing the LLM to give me more and more specifics, I keep returning the requirements doc, asking it for things, and then at the end, I'm gonna say, okay, I'm finally happy with what our plan is. Now, can you rewrite this document not for a human, but for an LLM, right? And so this is an important phase to get rid of all the fluff that Claude or ChatGPT want to give you because they want to interact with you like a human. They like want to talk our language, right? But instead, hey, write this for an LLM coder instead, as what I'm doing here, and then ask it to rewrite the requirements again, and then break it up into 3 phases so that we can do a deployment in between each phase. And this is a pro tip that I have for you after trying to tackle projects that are just too big, getting overwhelmed and not knowing where there's a problem in the code, etc. Now we've got phase 1, and we can do everything within phase 1. We can deploy it, verify it does everything that we want, do any bug fixes or any code changes, and then we can move on to phase 2, and then on to phase 3, etc. And this enables us to make sure that things are working and we get progressively more complicated as we go, right? It'll try and tackle the easiest things in phase 1 and the hardest things in phase 3 every single time, right? So complete and accurate use of data collection was phase 1, advanced predictions, insight, and wearable integrations is phase 3, right? This is very complicated, this sort of stuff. So again, I'm just asking it, rewrite this plan as an LLM, and it will get so much more specific the further and further you go. So now that I have this great requirements doc that's ready to go, now I can, or in the last, I messed it up by moving on. But in the last bit of that, it was then going to start actually writing the code. I apologize for messing that up. Like
Yeah,
I
no, it's
said, you
okay.
can watch all the videos later on if you so choose.
I
So
would
here's a, yeah,
Sorry to interrupt, Adam. So there's
no,
a few
no,
questions that just came through. I'm going to group a couple of them because they're kind of
no
related,
problem. Let's stop here.
which has to do with organization. Okay, so earlier you talked about trashing the chats often, and someone was asking, well, is it useful to like keep a record of it in a document? Someone else asked about, how do you use projects within ChatGPT? Do you use that to organize stuff? And then kind of a third question that's all kind of related to this organization. Someone asked about, all right, you kind of touch upon this. For larger apps or more complex apps, how do you think about breaking up these different components like you did here with the different phases? How did you know about how to break it into like these 9 or 10 different phases? So more, I guess, overall question about how you think about organizing, the
Mhm.
outputs and how you, basically compartmentalize using AI.
Yeah. Okay, so there are kind of like two flavors of questions here. One is the AI is giving you all of this great information. How do you not lose all of these wonderful insights? I don't keep them, is the real answer to that question. It's totally fine if you do. I initially that like teach me a 12-week course on Python. I copied all that stuff. It's in a document in my Google Drive somewhere. I literally have never looked at it ever again because you learn as you go through this process and then you move on to the next thing. You get more and more complex than the things that you want to know, and so the next time you have a question, just go back to the AI and ask it again, right? Just go back and ask it because you're going to have a slightly more nuanced understanding of the subject matter and you're going to have new requirements as you move through this, right? So that was kind of one set of questions. Two, I'm inherently skeptical of everyone everything. Like I'm a really big data privacy person coming from marketing. It's like it's been a big deal to me for a long time, so I actually don't try and rely on the ways that AI companies are trying to get me to give them all of my data. So projects and like really pushing every bit of my requirements into things, I'm inherently skeptical of that. So instead I'll bounce between various things and I'll do something over here and then I'll move on to the next phase in Claude and I'll work in Claude for a bit and then I'll move on to a different model within ChatGPT, et cetera, and not stay in any one place too long. So I don't spend a lot of time on things like projects and the organizational systems within ChatGPT. And then there was a third question. Tony, can you jog my memory
Yeah,
again?
so it's more about like how do you start to think about if you didn't know that you need to break a larger app
Uh,
into different
yeah.
components, like how do you start to think about?
Yeah, for sure. So like this what we're seeing on the screen is like everything for creating a fitness app. And
Yeah,
that's insane. And so
yeah,
what I would likely do is say, okay, for 3.1, can you write out the requirements for just this one thing? So you see here I trashed my chat. But I would say, hey, for just this phase, can we go through and do this one thing, right? And so for my application, a lot of the pages in Taras are different from the other pages. They use different data, etc. Here's that. Yay! Here's all the code that I said I messed up and didn't show you it actually printing on the screen. So a lot of my pages are single function pages within the application. So we tackle one page at a time, right?
mhm,
So you go through, you do one particular idea, and then you move on to the next idea. And you'll just have to get a feel for that, right? Sometimes pages are very easy to create for the AI, and you can tackle a much larger project quite quickly. Sometimes they're really, really complex. So one of the pages that I have is in 3D. It's a 3D visualization of way all of the interactions that people do do within that app that you have, how they like move through each one of these pathways, that's like, I don't know, 2,000 lines of code or something like that. And so for that project, I really had to break it up into unique chunks. And I had to say, okay, on this page, I want to be able to like click on one node and click on another node and have it draw the pathway in between it. That was one project. So first I had to visualize everything. And then I went to go to this like further idea to make something more useful from a user experience perspective for my clients, right? And so here, right, I just keep giving it the next phase of information, and it keeps creating the next sets of pages. And then here's a cute little tip right here. Hey, please review that previous code along with the code before it and see if there's any refactoring that needs to be done. And so you can say, hey, we just did phase one, we just did phase two. Can you make sure that phase one and phase two work together really well? It's still trying to like put in phase two right here. And I've already like moved on to like giving it the next set of things, but hey, can you make sure that this all works perfectly together? And it'll go back and it'll compare all of the code that it wrote before, all of the code that it wrote second, and it'll give you a new set of things if there's anything that needs to be done. And in this case, it did find things that made it work better together when I asked it for phase one and phase two, etc. Okay, so this is all well and good, but like I said before, the code it gives you is only going to be 80 to 90% of the way there. There will be some problems in the things that it do. So what do we do? Or, hey, I've got a developer who has built some really great components of my application that I have today, but I don't know what they did. I don't know how they did it. So the next thing is, how do we refactor? Refactoring just means go back and do it again. How do we refactor or fix bugs? So there, my visualizations weren't showing up in what we just saw. So I'm like, hey, I've got a really complicated page. Can you help me figure it out? First, I give it some logs. Then I give it the data set. And then I'm going to give it 900 lines of code. So this is like 1,200 lines of information that I just gave it all at once. And it's, in this case, I've moved on to working with ChatGPT o1. So that's a logic-oriented AI. So it thinks back and forth with itself. It tries to figure out a solution. It's really good at hacking cryptography. So we all need to make sure that we're doing security measures and things that I do because it's really good at hacking things. And in this case, it's just like, hey, you forgot a couple of words. Or I updated something in my data set and I didn't add the data, the new data values to my code. Right. And so before I had a pretty blank screen that had been working in the past. I made an update to my data set. And so I just had to go in here. This is VS Code. I just had to go in there, add one little line of code and deployed it, didn't make a change, did a different deployment, and then boom, here's my visualization again. Okay, it doesn't all fit in the little circles anymore because I added a lot more data, but the fundamentals of the chart are back, and it took one little change in order to get it back. So I just wanted to, I guess, call out that it's fine and empowering to tackle code that a developer wrote for you. The AI can help you navigate that as well. Okay, so that's the kind of like the core. How do I write really great requirements? How do I get it to generate code for me? How do I refactor and figure out bugs? The like most important tool that you have at your disposal for figuring out bugs is Google Chrome, the inspector in Google Chrome, and logs. And if you're just like, I don't understand what's going on, tell that to the AI. Say, I don't get why this is having a problem. Can you add in robust logging that will help us figure it out? And then you look in the console as your page loads, and it'll go boop, it broke right here, and then you just copy that error warning message. You give it back to the AI and say, hey, what do we do to fix this, right? And so using those tools, you can write really, really complex code without using the more sophisticated things like Cursor or Copilot, etc. If you can get to that level where you're working with Cursor or Copilot, awesome, you can go even faster, right? So cool. Okay, we're gonna switch gears a little bit. So we went through how do I just build code. Now let's talk about all the other things around creating a great product. And how do we use AI in order to make it even cooler than what we would think about on our own? The first thing is, how do I brainstorm new roadmap features? I'm thinking about new ideas for the product. So, with our fitness app explanation, I need to know how many reps for a personal trainer. Let's make a 3D visualization of muscles in the body. What other things should we do? And it'll say, hey, you should do personalized nutrition plans or workout history or social or gamification, having scheduling, and it'll go through and give you a bunch of examples. And that's awesome. Ask it for 20 examples of things. Some of them won't make any sense, or they might be duplicative of things that you already have in your application. That's awesome. And then ask it to tell me what the top three ideas are and why. And it'll go through and it'll say, hey, I think gamification and social community features are the most important things to get people into the product and using it regularly, etc. And then, one thing I really want to make sure that we head on again. I already told you that you never stop having a brain, but you never stop having the experiences that brought you to this. As a founder, you're bringing all of the things that you know about the world and your insights and the proprietary information you've learned along the way about this particular topic. If you don't think the AI is getting it, just keep talking to it. Keep asking it questions. Banter with the AI so that it can understand more about what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So that's all around how do I determine new features for the roadmap. Security is something I said earlier that O1 is great at cryptography and hacking things. So security is not something that we should forget, right? And so you can also work with AI to determine, how do I make sure that I'm doing really great security protocols, right? It's really easy to enforce HTTPS and TLS 1.2. Those are the sort of industry standards right now. You don't need to know what that is. It just spit it out when I asked you what are the things that we need to do for security. But you need to make sure that all of your data is being transferred securely, right? And those are the two primary protocols that people use in order to transmit data securely, right? So these things can be very, very simple. Like making TLS 1.2 is like a checkbox. It's like you just click, do I want 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3, right? And it's very easy to implement. So don't skip on these like pretty important security features. And if you want to keep going from there, the thing that I would do is I would ask it to help me become SOC 2 compliant, right? And so I would say, here's what we're doing right now. Can you help me be able to meet the requirements for a SOC 2 audit? And anybody that's been through SOC 2 knows that that is not necessarily a thing. It's your own decision about the way you want to secure your application, but it'll give you some guidelines around how do I make sure that I'm hitting the kind of minimum threshold in order to make sure that things are secure for people. How do I prioritize features that come from customers? New thing here. I don't know about you. If you've ever been responsible for product management, you get lots of weird and wacky things from your customers of things that they want. One of the great things that I do is I say, okay, here are all of the ideas. I don't think our fitness app needs a line of bath bombs and scented candles, but my customers ask for it. So I'm going to give all of those ideas to the AI, and then I'm going to ask it to give me a $1 to $5 rating around the potential amount of revenue that I'm going to get from each one of these features. And it'll say, okay, a coupon, not very much, but PT and mobility issues, I think you're going to get more money from doing that. And that's all well and great. And then the next part of that is how long is it going to take me to create this new feature? So it's like, hey, a couch to 5K running program, that's something that's definitely going to get people in interested in your app. Bar and mixology course probably isn't, because that bar, mixology, and fitness don't really go all that well together, right? And so now I'm going to ask it, can you do a t-shirt size assessment for each one of these features? And how hard would it be to create it, right? So extra small to extra large, go back and do that for each one of those. And here it goes. So nutrition guidance is a medium, meal planning is a large, one-on-one coaching with trainers is large, sponsorships with local gyms, extra large, etc. And so it will give you all these things. And then I asked you to smush it together. How much money and how much effort can I do together on any one of these individual ideas, right? Okay, so that's how do I prioritize the features that my customers have given me. Now I want to plan my launch. So I've done all this work. I've got an MVP. Now, how do I get this out into the world? One of the things that you can do that we haven't talked about yet is asking the AI to go do a search for you on the web to give you more information than what you have. So in this case, I've got a homepage or I've got a website for my product, but I've just added 3 cool new features to that. Do you see what I did? Right? Wow, that was terrible. That could be literally about anything for any product. A complete failure. Do it again, right? And you can, the AI does not get offended at you. It does not get mad and stop working. It might get a little terse, but it will not quit. So you can be a little aggressively forward with AI and it will still be perfectly fine to work with you, etc. There are a lot of people think that you need to be very flowery and very, very sweet to AI. And I will say that you do not. So here's something good, right? So finally, we've got a team. My web dev team needs to create a new a couch to 5K landing page and a new nutrition meal planning page, etc. And it goes to each team and what are the things that they need to do in order to make sure that we launch this new product. You can grab one of your competitors' websites, ask it to go look at your homepage, at your competitor's homepage, and tell me what messaging we should think about including from the way that they're doing their product marketing on their website, right? How are 5 campaigns that we could run for a new feature that we've developed? I don't know that I would actually use any one of these. These are about incontinence and personal progress challenges, et cetera, might be a little offensive to your users. But hey, you know, it's a top 5 pelvic floor myths or hashtag my pelvic journey, things that, again, I don't know that I would do. But they are great ways for you to get started in thinking about what things you wanna do for your app. Okay, 1 or 2 last things and we'll be all done here. Understanding your customer is so important, right? So ask it to give me personas and ICP. So tell me about who the people are, what are their motivations, stressors, retention strategies, and then it is great to go later on and you can copy one of these personas, you give it your website homepage again and say, go look at my homepage and see how beginner Bella would feel about the messaging on my page, or how would runner Ryan feel about the messaging on my website, etc. Would they buy it? Would they be interested in this particular product or feature? And use the AI to help you proactively understand things more about your clients before you then go, you know, do real world customer interviews and talk to people and actually like validate that ideas are good and real, etc. So one bonus idea before we end here, there are great workflow automation tools. This is Naten or N8N. And here we're seeing, look at my CRM data, pick the top 10 customers that would be interested in this new feature. It goes through, it grabs information, it asks an AI agent that's running on my computer only. It's not in the cloud. It could be in the cloud. I don't want things in the cloud as much as possible. And it's got 2 agents. They talk to each other. They think about it. They're like, cool, I think this is a good idea. And it keeps going. It saves the data back to a sheet. It loops on to the next one, keeps going. And then I just like give you a little peek. This is like the amount of work that it takes to like create the prompts. That's true prompt engineering as far as I'm concerned. You can get into a little bit of trouble in prompting when you get with your own LLM and you're like just on your local machine. The workflow automation is something totally within your grasp as well, to take really complex things that just suck up a lot of your time and automate those so that you can do them faster and more repeatable. So I just want to close with this. You are only limited by your imagination in life these days, right? The technology itself is helping it technologize so much easier and do things for you so much faster than you could in the past. And so the only thing is your grit and your gumption, your own moxie, are the only things preventing you from doing anything that you want to be able to do. Speaking of doing things, if you want to watch all of those videos again, I'm going to leave this up on the screen for a second. You can just take your little phone and QR code that. That'll bring you to a thing where you drop in your name and your email address. I didn't automate this. So it will actually send me an email and I will actually send you an email back. But if you want that, or if you want, I've got a couple of resources of like 100 different developer tools that help you with QA or help you with all these various stages of AI driven development. You can certainly QR code that, and I will send you an actual human written email. Now we're ready for QA. So Tony, we got more in there. Does anybody
Yes,
brand up?
amazing. This is awesome. Okay, so there's a couple of related questions. I'm going to try to again group them. So let me start off by saying, first of all, just really good. Like, I feel like we're just like uncovering the tip of the iceberg here. But specific question around the UI, the user interface.
Uh-huh.
Do you recommend using, a specific generative UI? Like, I don't know if you heard of V0 from Vercel, a tool like that, or even like a Mid-Journey type of tool to create the user interface? Or do you recommend using just the general, run-of-the-mill, well, like a ChatGPT, your basic, raw, for lack of a better term, LLM tool, prompting tool, and have it somehow, interact with, let's say, Figma, or ask it to, hey, create a Figma design or something like that. Like, do you have any specific recommendations specifically for UI? And then I'll have you answer that question, but the follow-on question is kind of expanding beyond that. We talked about, Claude and ChatGPT, and then you also showed a couple of other interesting tools like that I haven't even heard of, NAN, and that looks really cool. Are there certain types of tools or tool sets that you feel like are great to use for certain parts of the developing product for different function, like UI or a workflow automation or something else? Hopefully
Yeah.
that made sense.
No, that makes sense. The answer though is maybe a little less satisfying for everybody, which is there is an explosion of tools that is happening right now. There are so many things that are available to you. There are so many of them that are open source. They're free. They have a free tier, free plan. There's so much that you can get started with. I'll give you kind of the same answer that I give to all my gardening classes when I teach them. You have your own certain magic, and you have a beautiful way to piece together all of the things that work well for you in order to do the things that work. So, if you're wanting to tackle UI, again, go back to the AI and ask it, hey, this is how my project is set up. And this is something like I moved around between UI components kind of earlier in the process. I ended up settling on a library called Mantine. Some of these words have never been spoken out loud before, so I don't know how to actually pronounce them in real life. But and talk to the AI about what things you're trying to accomplish, and have it be helpful. So I didn't use any particular thing for UI treatment. I come from a long background in design, and while the product that I created might be a little bit of a clown show, I wanted it to look interesting and different and not be traditional, right? And so I wanted something that was a little more colorful and outlandish in the things that I created. And so I pushed the AI to help me create something that was closer to that vision. I think Midjourney is amazing. I think it's one of the things that you should spend the $10 a month on for really great, especially human oriented imagery. Like it does just an amazing job of creating things that look really lifelike and beautiful in it. And you can get complex into its own prompting and how you make various different ways of creating visual imagery. But I didn't go through within any of this. I didn't go through any sort of Figma design process like I would have with an actual engineer, right? So with an engineer, I would create a mock-up of the way that it would look in Figma or Canva, and then I would talk to the designer about what we were trying to accomplish within that. And I didn't do that. One thing that you can do is you can just take a sheet of paper and you can draw on the sheet of paper the way that you want the user interface or experience to look, take a picture of that and then provide that to the AI, and the AI itself will review the image and provide you with notes of how to do things. So yeah, the moral of the story is there are 20,000 potential products for you to use, right?
Yeah.
I mean that without joke. There are probably 20,000 products that will help you do any one of these individual pieces or components. Find the ones that are right for you. Talk to the people around you about what they're finding success with. I tend to not jump on every new product, and I tend to just go for the cleanest package oriented methods. That said, I have gotten like pretty into the like automated code generation, and have like you played around with a bunch of different products within that of like, hey, I don't want to do any work. I just like want to sit here and have the like thing do all of the bug refactoring and all of the like challenges
Yeah.
all by itself. Like I don't want to do all that at all. So I've spent a fair bit of time in the quasi AGI thing. So I'm sorry that I don't have a particular tool for a particular
No,
process for you
great.
to
Yeah.
that's your own
Um,
magic.
we'll wrap up with just maybe one or two questions. Here's a
Great.
very practical one, and I think this will be very good question or answer for a lot of our non-technical founders. So, what do you do with the code that the LLM generates? Do you just copy and paste into a code editor? Do you check it into a code repository? Like, what do you do with that as a, practical output?
Yeah, for sure. And this is one of the things that I gave you this QR code for. If you go back to that like initial how do I set things up thing, it'll actually go through this, like I said, it's like 20 minutes long and we didn't have time to like do all of that. But it'll go through and it'll actually like go to how do I use something like VS Code? How do I use something like GitHub or GitLab in order to do this? I do. So like I use, I will just show it to you. This is VS Code for each one of my like various projects. So here's my Python. There's all of the code for the way that the models are organized. I can click here. I can look at the like particular code itself, etc. There's my little terminal, so I can ask it to deploy things, and then I'm pushing this to GitHub. And so I use GitHub and GitLab to manage my CI/CD process. I use Google Cloud as my cloud provider, and so it goes from my VS Code when I'm ready to do a deployment, pushes to GitHub to GitLab first. GitLab does all the code validation on it, make sure that it actually can compile well, and then it saves it to GitHub after that, and then pushes it to Google Cloud for the actual deployment. Whether you're using Microsoft Azure, AWS, or Google Cloud, they're all different flavors of the same thing. They have various UI things. I had just been working on Azure, and so I didn't want to work on Azure again, not because there's anything wrong with Azure, just because I wanted a clean break from my last thing. And so I decided to go with Google Cloud, etc. So anyways, yes, GitHub is critical, y'all.
Awesome. Okay, we're right on time. So let's close it out. And so if you guys have any questions for Adam, you can see his email address there. So don't spam him. Don't like, he's kind enough to join us and offer his expertise. So, and Adam's super nice. If you reach out to him and have a quick question, I'm sure he'll respond right away. And obviously he showed the QR code, which is great. Afterwards, if you didn't take a photo of it or actually, scan the QR code, we'll have the recording and all that. So later on, you could go back and get access to more content. Definitely reach out to me if you have questions or your Mucker advisor. If you have any requests for future sessions on stuff like AI or anything related to go-to-market growth or just startup and building your own company, feel free to email your request to Daniela. We're building out our growth series webinar schedule for the year. So we're open to ideas. And then lastly, if you are a founder, an entrepreneur, and are looking for help, not just with capital, but stuff like this, and perhaps even joining an accelerator program, definitely go to mucker.com to get more information. Adam, super thankful and grateful for you for taking time. I know part of this is you charge people for stuff like this. So I'm really thankful for you sharing your expertise. I learned a lot, and I know our audience, just given the amount of interaction, that this was a very useful and important topic for them to learn. So again, thank you so much. For those of you who join, thank you for sticking around. We'll see you at the next one. So have a great day, everyone. Take care.